More material is being released from the Tucker Carlson files, stuff that either went on before the camera started rolling or text messages. Well, a racist text message allegedly sent by the former Fox host has set off alarm bells at the top of the network and ultimately contributed to his firing. This is according to the New York Times today. The text, which remains redacted in court filings in Dominion Voting Systems defamation case against Fox News, but which the Times published in full, included the line, "It's not how white men fight." The message allegedly shows Carlson describing how he saw a group of Trump supporters beat up an Antifa kid or an anti-fascist counter-protester. Carlson allegedly describes the encounter as 3 against 1 at least and added, "Jumping a guy like that is dishonorable. Obviously, it's not how white men fight." Now, this is of no surprise to me and certainly anybody who has watched the Tucker Carlson show, formerly on Fox, and hearing how he talks about race in a way that is, he clearly is a white supremacist. He's clearly somebody who holds these views, tries quite hard to keep them below the surface, but then occasionally they kind of come up to the surface and you get to really see who he really is. He talks a lot about this white replacement theory, the idea that white people in America are being replaced by people of color. And it's not something that he's terribly comfortable with. And you have to ask, why is a man who is a white supremacist, who clearly is a racist and hangs out with, similar people, how has he been allowed to have a prime-time kind of network news show for over a decade? How is it that the bosses, in this case Rupert Murdoch, did they not watch that show? Did they not see what he was really doing, how these dog whistles were always calling out to people who felt a similar way? And unfortunately, if you have such a big audience and a platform and a following, a lot of your thoughts and feelings and, because he's not always scripted, he's talking off the cuff as I am now. And when you do that type of news, you end up saying things just to fill time that you might, if you were scripting it, might not really consider. And that's when you really get the true measure of the man. One thing I've noticed in some of these clips that you've seen of him, like before or after the show has ended and he's taking his earpiece out and someone's removing his microphone, he's taking off his makeup, is that the guy is unhinged. I get a sense that, when he goes into this kind of crazy laugh all of a sudden and then cuts straight out of it, who behaves like that? Is he putting that on, or is that just who he is? And we saw that laugh and that kind of weird Joker-style behavior happening even during broadcasts. And it makes you question, because I care and think a lot about mental health and, the fact that we don't really talk about it or consider it. And, Donald Trump, as we know, is very mentally compromised, and yet there was no checks and balances to check that he was well enough to be president of the United States. And you saw the result of that. You saw the insanity, the daily scandals, the way that he chose to run his presidency like some autocracy, where he felt that he was not just the president of all Americans, but actually was this dictator who could decide the fate of anything. He wanted to buy countries. He wanted to nuke storm systems. This guy was completely unhinged, and yet for some reason he was allowed to continue, and the media kind of legitimized him by reporting on him with a serious face on. And really the way to cover Donald Trump and anybody like him is to laugh him off the screen or laugh him off the stage, or to kind of really expose him for who he really is. And yet the media didn't do that because he was box office. He brought ratings to CNN. He brought ratings to Fox. This show is sponsored by Lomi. I have a big family and, well, that means there's usually a lot of trash left over by the time the week comes to an end. And frankly, I used to feel a bit guilty about this. But then I got a Lomi. Now that I have a Lomi, it's changed the way I think about my food waste. Lomi transforms my garbage into gold at the push of a button. Lomi is a countertop electric composter that turns food scraps into dirt in under 4 hours. Now, I love composting, plus it's made cooking at home even more fun. There's no food rotting in the garbage and smelling up the kitchen. Thanks to Lomi, I only have to take the trash out once a week, and it's a hassle-free, mess-free experience. No more leaking bags. Here's something cool too. I turn my waste into nutrient-rich dirt that I can feed to my plants, lawn, or garden. That means it's not going to landfill and producing methane gas. I get to help the environment and make my life easier. And all my food scraps, plant clippings, and even those leftovers I forgot in the back of my refrigerator go back into my garden, helping me grow more nutritious food right in my backyard. I learned that food waste makes up a huge portion of our personal carbon footprint. By reducing the amount of food I send to landfill, I'm helping do my part for the planet while also feeding my garden. Whether you want to start making a positive environmental impact or just grow a beautiful garden, Lomi is perfect for you. Head to lomi.com/weekend and use promo code WEEKEND to get $50 off your Lomi. That's $50 off when you head to lomi.com/weekend and use promo code WEEKEND at checkout. Thank you, Lomi, for sponsoring this episode. And the sad part about that is that it's almost like these journalists and these news organizations, including Rupert Murdoch, they put the country second. They didn't prioritize the health of the country. And by the country, I'm not talking about the territory or the landmass. I'm talking about the people, the 330 million people that make up the United States. That is what makes a country, its people, not its landmarks or its president or, head of state. It's people. And so people have been infected with this language and this behavior of the likes of Tucker Carlson and also all the other hosts on Fox, Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham, people who are far right increasingly because they too have fallen under the mental health spell of Donald Trump, this Trump contagion phenomenon that I've talked about before. It is a mental health issue. It's not even politics anymore. It has become so cult-like that is a mental health thing. And if you talk to any professionals, and I reference people like Bandy Lee or Steve Hassan, both doctors who I've interviewed, and they talk in such detail because they are experts about how people have been brainwashed by far-right and right-wing media. And also the proliferation of channels. It's not just Fox. If you look on your EPG, there are at least now maybe 6, 7, 8, 9 kind of very right-wing propaganda-based news channels that are pushing the same narrative. And so when people channel hop, they hear it on Fox, it gets repeated on Newsmax, and before they know it, they think it's true. The reality is that the United States is a much better place than people are led to believe. It's making people angry. It's making people divided. It is not based in truth. And talking about immigrants in this awful way and demonizing people of color and demonizing LGBTQ people and saying that trans people are the new enemy. I mean, where does this come from? This kind of race baiting, this minority baiting. It is just more of the same. It's been happening over hundreds of years that, trans people are the latest victims of this propaganda. And it is not based in truth. Trans people are not the people to fear. If you want to fear anybody, it is this white nationalist homegrown terrorism. That is the biggest problem in the United States at the moment, whether it be mass shootings or school shootings. Invariably, the demographic is the same. It is people who are angry. And the reason they are angry is because they have been told by the likes of Tucker Carlson that they are supposed to feel anger. And it is that anger that drives this gun crime that has become such a problem for American society. So, for my personal feelings, Tucker Carlson has done a whole lot more than just be disparaging of certain groups. He has damaged American culture and American society forever. Unless unless he goes on screen and apologizes and is called out for each and every one of these broadcasts where he has brainwashed people into thinking that America is broken then people are going to continue to think it's broken because Fox is still peddling the propaganda. Hasn't really changed. Tucker Carlson is just one of many. And so if you truly care about the United States, as I do, you will make the effort to look elsewhere for your news. You will make the effort to compare the US to other countries and see how the rest of the world is operating and get a sense of perspective on what is important. I'm Anthony Davis. You can hear me on the 5-Minute News podcast every day and on Sundays on The Weekend Show with MeidasTouch.
Hey Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.